c1, we're coming in, check, here, maybe here, or here. But then you got your rook defending this and that, and that. But game goes on. It's never over, is it? Never easy. Even knight d5, king d5 attacking both now. Also, black's rook is out the game. King c5, rook here. King d4 attacks both, knight f5. Now option to come in. Rook b4 check, tick, attack. Winning Endgames by Magnus Carlsen. Part 2 of each example will be the live recording, but part 1 will be a discussion of each endgame. In these examples, Magnus Carlsen is playing 17-year-old grandmaster from the US, Brandon Jacobson. They played so many bullet games on lichess. Each player had 1 minute each on the clock. Timestamps are below, so if you're bored with a section, you can just skip to another one. There's going to be a bonus tactic in the middle. Let me know in the comments below if you see the answer. If it's your first time here, hello, my name is William. Let's begin. Rook and bishop in the middle. Sometimes Magnus blunders in the endgame. In this position, white now has a really cool tactic with knight e2, forking both rook and bishop. There's no good way for black to defend the bishop, so rook takes f3, take, bishop f8. White is totally winning here because he has a rook for a bishop, and this rook can go after these pawns. They might just start dropping. Rook c8, knight e5, check, king out. Take on b7, coming back to b6 and collecting. This is a winning endgame for white, but let's see what happens. Knight takes c4. Rook b6 is stopped for the moment. This knight is annoying, so one option is to just kick it away with b3. Knight goes to d2, you attack this and that. Let's defend this. The rook is defending b3 at the moment, so king g2. Now the rook can come here to attack these two isolated pawns. a5, rook b6, bishop e7. Knight d4. It looks like Brandon blundered, but after bishop c5, he did blunder. This is the real blunder because after take, black is now winning. But there's a brilliant move here which I pointed out, which I saw live, so I was quite pleased to see live. At the time, knight f5 check actually gets out. Because if you take, then check. And you're going to pick the bishop back. And if you go king g5 now, you can take because both are hanging, so when that bishop moves, now you can actually save your knight. So that was a way out. Bishop c5 played. Take, now we get bishop or knight. Black is now winning. There was no way to save that pawn, so after rook d6, knight b3 is a great move. You protect the bishop and the pawn. Behind the pawn. Push. Finding a way to swap off that doubled pawn, so that's a great move. Rook b6, take. h4 check, because if you take, then rook g6, and it's very close to a draw. King up, check. Attack the rook. Finding a way to swap off the pawn. They both have what? Carlsen has 9 seconds. Brandon has 10 seconds. Check. Take. And now he plays a cool pre-move. Rook takes a5. 8 seconds against 9 seconds. Even if Carlsen played that, then no way, man. No way. To checkmate in time with bishop and knight. So it might have been a draw anyway. But after rook takes a5, he moved the king take, and we get a draw. And we're going to take that one and knight e2. That is a fork. That's a really, really clever fork. Well played. Brandon, well played. What a move, man. Rook c8, we're coming to collect. Rook c7, take. But then knight e5 is there. Okay, check and then f4 maybe. Take here, rook c7, b3. Keep the pawn. King g2, cool. Now I've got to find a way to keep that pawn. Keep that on the board and winning chances are there. So you can't take because that drops, so maybe knight d4. But then bishop c5. Knight f5 check. That's a cool move. Okay, he missed it maybe. Yeah, knight f5 check, then rook d6, winning the bishop. Bishop b4, ouch. Yeah, chess is tough, man. Chess is tough. Brandon must be pissed. Get pawns off. Feels like a draw, but 9 seconds. Right, let's see what happens. Oh wow, he pre-moved that, huh? But that's okay because knight and bishop, you're not going to win in 8 seconds. Nice pre-move there, get rid of that pawn. Love it. Let's begin here. How to evaluate this position. Level. But black is making progress on the queen side. He has a good solid pawn structure. White has more space in the center. his major pieces are developed, you can also get the rook in as well, so to put pressure on these pawns. White now plays knight d3, the knights come off, take. Queens now come off as well. Due to the pin on this diagonal, take, take, take. Rook c6, vital move when is your move and rooks are on the board. Get the file. Rook c1, just to reduce the pressure. Rook c8, take, take. Rook c2 is a problem. Or is it? If rook c2, rook f2 is there. So h5 now. Why? Get that square, but also the king can actually come in. This is a wonderful example of how Carlsen plans to outplay Jacobson. Rook f2, king h7, king g6, and king f5. This is not a strength anymore, because not only is it important for black to have a very active rook in these rook endgames, but its pawn structure is going to make a big difference. How can black get in a pawn break just to break up the structure? So f6, g5 are there. Black is the one who's playing for a win. King f3, g5. Also, black's king is more active. Black's king is actually attacking, white's king is defending. d4. So you're holding your center, take, take. Now this might be a weakness. Attack, defend. If black can find a way to get his rook to attack it, then we're good. Rook c1, coming into the back. Rook g2. It's always cool to threaten checkmate in one, but after check, then you take, and there's no mate anymore. Check. Rook here, check, take, and it's game over. No good spot for the king. A3 play, trying to break up the structure, but after check, white resigned. The king has to go back, then you take, the king moves, and then you take the rook, and then it's totally lost. Check. Take. Game over. March him down the board. King here as well. Knight d4, maybe you take and queen b6. Line it up. I think I've had this position. Take, 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 take. Now we get this rook end game, and I think black is better here because you got the c file. Rook c1, rook c8, 6, take, take. Rook c2, rook f2. So you gotta try something else. Ah, king here, maybe. That's a chance. But then h3, just in time, maybe to create an imbalance. That's a target now. Rook c1, we're coming in. Check. Here. Maybe here. Or here. But then you got your rook defending this and that. But that rook is better. Ah, that was mate. So now, 39 seconds against 22. In this rook endgame, I believe black is winning. Ah, and he resigned because the king goes back and then check. And you pick up the rook. Game over. Bonus tactic. Magnus played Brandon so many times. This is one of their positions. Rook takes b7 just been played. Black now grabs the pawn in the center, but after take, take, there's an absolutely brilliant move for white in this position. If you can see it, comment below. What is white's brilliant move? Let me know in the comments below. Let's take it from here. How to evaluate this position. 3 against 2 for white, 2 against 3 for black. 5 pawns each. Knight and bishop against couple of knights. I think this bishop is very well placed in the center, but black can kick it away. Other factor, black has the open file, white has this file to work with, and kings are both quite well placed. So really, overall, the chances are level for both sides. Black now kicks the bishop away. Now, if you retreat it to e3 or to f2, then maybe this bishop isn't so good anymore. So maybe if you play bishop f2, now the knight can come into e4. Maybe. So, Carlsen decides to trade it off. Give up his amazing bishop on d4. Take, take. c4. After this move, well, it's still 5 pawns each. A lot can still happen. This knight now has the option to come into the central square. d5. b6, just to defend. Knight e3, king c6, a4. g6, g4. Knight in, rook d3, knight d6. Keeping an eye on the pawn. Knight still needs to defend it. h4, rook f8, g5, getting the square. Also stopping black coming forward with h5, because he can now en passant. a6, trying to get b5 moving, so then he can get his queen side rolling. Knight g4 coming into f6 to put pressure here. So Carlsen loses a pawn here. Knight f6, rook f7, rook d8. Check, coming back, and also maybe, well, trying to stop the queenside pawns rolling. b5 play, take, take. Black does has 2 pawns. King e4, b4, throw in a check. Now black can block, but king b5 played. Rook b8 check, king moves, king d5. Double attack. How to evaluate this position? Well, white's pieces are more active. Maybe it's okay being down a pawn. King d5. Rook is stopping this pawn for now, but the very important point is this king is attacking both pawn and knight. So the knight moves with check, you take the pawn, rook check, king d4, you attack the knight, and after knight f5 check, king e5. The king is closing in. King e5, knight takes h4, rook b4 check, a tactic out of nothing. Always look out for these in your endgames. Rook takes b4 check, what an amazing move. Maybe you could have played knight d5 actually. That might have been better, because you can't go rook c4 because knight b6 check. So knight d5 might have been better, because when you attack the rook moves and then rook takes b4 check. So that was one option. Rook takes b4 check, knight d5 check, you get the rook. So white is a bit better because his king is closer, but it should be a draw. Knight e6, knight f8, knight g2, you attack that pawn. Carlsen pushes the pawn, you take that one, knight h4, defend. King might come in, f4, get him rolling, knight d5 check, you pick it up. But after king g4, the king is close enough, the knight looks like it's going to stop it. Knight e6, knight g6, knight h4, knight d4, good move just to stop the black king coming in. Now black blunders with king h5, and this is now totally winning for white. One option was just to play king f4, so then the king still guards that square, the knight continues to stop this pawn going forward, and it's a draw. But after knight d4, king h5 played, knight f5. The point is, you attack the knight, so then the knight doesn't guard that square anymore, so if take, you can just push it home. After knight f5, knight f3, g6, and the knight, there's no way to get back in time over here. No way. Check. And you get a queen, and that's it. Game over. Level endgame, but then Carlsen managed to play better moves than Brandon, or cements it. I think white's now fine, take, and we play this. Knight e3, knight d5 is there, a4 first, g4, get him rolling before you commit. If the knight goes to d5, h4, yeah, level endgame, let's see what happens. 30 seconds each. Knight g4, knight e5, white's got squares. Knight f6, rook d8, take, 2 pawns now, because Carlsen chucked that pawn, but game goes on. It's never over, is it? Never easy. Even knight d5, king d5 attacking both now. Also, black's rook is out the game. King c5, rook here, king d4 attacks both, knight f5, now option to come in, rook b4 check, tick, attack. But this feels like a draw. They got 16 seconds each. Let's see what happens. Take. How are we going to do this? Take. Oh, he goes knight h4. That's cool. That's cool. Check. Knight f4. And should be a draw most of the time. Let's see what happens. King h5. How's this going to be a draw? Knight f3, e6. Check. Ouch. Ouch. Okay. Ouch. Here is YouTube's suggestion for what to watch next. But if you don't like their suggestion, maybe you'll like my one. Firouzja beats Carlsen in 29 seconds.